Alright, so bear with me, we're gonna start officially assembling this computer, and I don't know if this will be broke down into steps or one giant video or what, but first thing first, we gotta prep our CPU cooler. It's a little bit more complicated than like some old school stuff, but this is the Fantex. We've kind of taken a look at it already. And so what we have here, this is their backing plate, and I finally figured some things out. Alright, so this Intel, they broke it down into Intel and AMD, right? The Intel LGA 2011, that is not our socket, right? We're in 11, what is our processor? Let me grab it. It's 1151, right? Somewhere on here it says. Let's see. Yes, 1151. In the instructions, I think it like specs out 55, 56, 50 maybe. Luckily, despite that, just think of it as 11.5X. They're basically all the same. Here, the way this is set up, on the backing plate, it kind of walks you through it. Slot 1, which we'll take a look at, is 1366. Slot 2 is basically 11.5X. Anything 1150 based, including our brand new Skylake, which is 1151. Slot 3 is 775. So, what does that relate to? Right there, if you can see it. Now you can. 1, 2, and 3. 1's at the top, 2 in the middle, 3 at the bottom, right? So what we have to do here is we're going to take these little stud extenders. Notice kind of got a hex head, if you will. And so instead of putting it in slot 1, as in 1151, we are slot 2. This is quite hard with one hand. Tripod not well suited for this. It's a little sloppy, but you just kind of orient it to where that's fully recessed, right? We don't want it hanging out or off the ledge, but it's actually inside that cavity. It's going to be flush. It'll actually be a little below flush, so essentially the black frame is going to be a higher lip than our stud right there. So we want to repeat that for these 4 sides, and then we're going to apparently attempt to attach this thing to our motherboard, so that should be fun. Stay tuned. Alright, so we've got our motherboard over here. It's on the box, it's on the bag. I'm taking all the precautions I can, one of which includes this little Jim Dandy. It's just a simple rose wheel anti-static wrist strap. I think this is the higher end one that costs like $6 instead of $4. And I think it's got a slightly longer cord, so I'm going to ground myself out as always. But right here on top of our little processor box, you can kind of see I've got that oriented correctly. And we're in slot 2 for our 1151 Skylake based processor. Right here, that's going to be where we're going to put the CPU eventually. But note, we've basically got hole 1, hole 2, hole 3, and hole 4. They're basically the only holes that you're going to go through the PCB there. And that's convenient if you're a first timer. We want that backing plate obviously oriented to come through there so we can attempt to mount this cooler. So that's what we're gonna do, and we'll take a look at it once we've slid that in place. Awkward angle here, but if you note, there's 4 silver things that are out of place. Those are our kind of stud extenders. They're black at the base, which is a little misleading but good for what we're about to do. But they're coming through. I'm using gravity here, because on the flip side you can see that is our mounting plate. We've got everything flush like we need it. And I'll fix that. We'll be back, and we're gonna actually mount that thing so it doesn't drop out of its placement. Alright, so first thing first, we've got our Gigabyte G1 Gaming Z170 motherboard here, and we've popped the lever here, and we're gonna swing this thing up. Note the little tab slid out. This is apparently the plastic cover. It's 1151. The triangle is facing down. I think it'll come out naturally when we place this in. I'm not sure. This cord is kind of a problem, being grounded and all. So we want to carefully pick this up, which is really hard actually to do with this stupid cord. And we want to, that was the arrow direction, I believe. So we've got it in place. It fits. It can only go one way again. I think I was covering the camera, the microphone there. But right there, that's our triangle. It is in the lower left-hand corner of the side closest to our shield cover here. And so we're just going to pull this thing back down. And that should slide under. And we just want to pull this in place. And it should pop. Alright, so we have installed our processor. As you can see, it's our i7-6700K Skylake, and essentially that's super straightforward. You just clip it down like we showed, and then the plastic cover pops off. We've got it back here. You always want to keep that in case you have to replace it. you can put that in while you've got any downtime. That said, what I did then is we took our back plate, I oriented so the text faces up, it's in reading position. Little things like that bother me. And then what we did, you've got two choices here with your cooler, and it's I'm not sure which way to go with it. Essentially, this is our little spreader. It's in position 2. Let me come over here and show you. Essentially, you've got the standalone hole right there on the corner farthest out. That just simply doesn't fit here, neither does the bottom hole. So just like we did on the back side of the bracket, it's going to be slot 2. And obviously, this is going to fit in this manner like you see here. Or you can install it this way. The way that is going to change things is it will change whether, you know, fan text and the fans are going to be oriented, you know, as a blow-through design to exit air out the back of the case, or if it's going to be basically kind of like an updraft that will exhaust hot air out the top of the case. Personally, I'm kind of inclined to be curious if it wouldn't be better going through the top. You know, warm air rises, the old adage, but pretty much everything I've seen, I've never seen a soul do that. And I assume people would know better than me, but I don't know. Maybe people just, one person did that and everyone does the same thing. Anyway, right here, just to kind of highlight how you put this bracket on, first thing you want to do is put the spacers in place over your mounting studs, which are affixed to the backing plate. And then you just orient the bracket like so. And it's a little difficult with one hand, but it dropped right in place. And then these guys right here that got the, you know, Phillips head on top, you just simply thread those guys in place. Do everything, you know, finger tight, loose at first till you're kind of sure what you want. And again, a little easier when you're using your dominant hand. I'm using my left hand here. I guess it's okay to use it from time to time. I kind of keep it up to speed with the others. Once that's sort of roughed in, you get a feel for it, right? And what we've got here on our Fantex, we've got that mounting bracket. We don't have it fixed yet, but it's got a nice indentation there. You can sort of see that keyway cut out. And it's lined up. There's a mounting. There's just a little screw we have not put in place yet. But the way we've got it, this would be the typical layout most people tend to use. So we put that in place, and again, this right here, the I/O shield area, that's going to be the back of the case. So you would essentially have a front mounting fan and your center fan, and then it would be pulling air through. You know, this would be pulling it, and then we would be pushing air out the back, which would then go to the case fan. That is pretty much how I have seen every single person install these. And again, my dilemma, I guess you can do it either way. I wonder if it wouldn't be better to have it oriented in this manner. You know, where Fantex is here, we'd have the middle fan and then a fan, I guess, close to the top, or we could do it at the bottom. The issue I've gotten when I've got to mock up, if we put a fan on the bottom, I don't know if we're going to be able to access that top PCI slot or not. Similarly, this covers over the RAM slots, as does this orientation. So either one of those is kind of going to be an issue. However, I've pulled our RAM out, which, by the way, matches quite nicely there. Kind of both have that blue anodized finish. And I've oriented it in there as a test fit just to be like, oh geez, we screwed up already. And it does actually clear. I just now have to kind of set this up with the fan, and we will check and make sure that our RAM clears there. If it does not, and it will clear in this way, we've got to then come in and make sure we can have access to this top slot. That's probably where I would like to put our graphics card, which again, I don't know if we can do or not. So I'll be mocking some stuff up here, but that's essentially how that goes together, you know, the mounting plate side of this Fantex CPU cooler. So pretty straightforward, pretty easy actually. We'll take it from there. But what I'll do now, while we've got a little downtime, is I'll run over to the case, we'll pop in the I/O shield, we'll pull out the power supply cover, some simple things like that. So stay tuned. You know, actually, before we go to the case and do that, I want to point this out because we'll highlight it there. This is an ATX motherboard, so we've got 9 mounting holes essentially. Right up here, kind of on the side of the shroud, you can't see it through the plastic. You kind of can. See that shiny stuff that looks like the Triforce symbol or something? That is mounting hole number 1. There's going to be number 2. You can see there. Number 3 on the side of the red switch. 3 across the top, 3 in the middle, 3 at the bottom. So 3, 3, 3. There's number 4, number 5, and number 6 right there. Down here in the bottom corner, that would be number 7, number 8, and number 9. So we'll go to the case and we will actually kind of showcase the 9 studs which Fantex has pre-installed, which is cool, at least if you have an ATX board. Otherwise, I guess you got to take them out. So we'll head over there and be right back. Alright, so here we are. This is our case. Obviously side panels are removed. Very simple on this Fantex. You've essentially got 2 per panel. They're thumb screws. It's self-explanatory really. But right here, just like we had the 3, 3, and 3, you see that black spot? That's our standoff. So standoff 1, 2, and 3. Sorry, it's blurry. But we'll come back out a bit. There we kind of go. Alright, so if you go with that top expansion slot, which is like your drilled area, 4, 5, and 6. Down at the bottom, 7, 8, and 9. Let me try to get my fingers in there and not cover the mic. This is incredibly ridiculous by yourself, but essentially 9, 8, 7 right there. Coming up just inside the window here where we can have our backing plate area, 6, 5, and 4. And then at the top right here, 3, 2, and 1. Alright, so this is our I/O shield that came with our Gigabyte Z170X Gaming 7, or whatever they want to call it. Pretty nice finish, glossy. It's LED backlit, and of course it's gonna go in that cavity right there where you see nothing but a Skylanders poster, right? And I've heard nothing but horror stories with people in backing plates. They cut their fingers, they lacerate themselves, it's a pain, they can't get them in, they decide not to even install them. I've actually installed this and it was a cakewalk, so I don't know if this is better quality or if we got a really good combination of case and motherboard compatibility situations going on. All I know is it went well, and I will attempt to replicate it for you. Alright, so this is, I'll admit, a little difficult with one hand, because camera in one hand, I/O shield in the other. Kind of need both of them. I don't have a short tripod, but we'll put that in place, and we just want to slowly press it in. Actually, we did it with one hand. That's fantastic. So, let's make sure we've oriented it correctly, because with our one hand setup it's a little difficult to check. Let's see. Yeah, we're golden. Text up. We've got the audio at the bottom. Again, you do want to make sure you do that correctly. So everything looks good on that front. Now, other prep we can do over here. This is our PSU cover. This is the reason it was cool to have a black power supply, because it doesn't matter, because it's not going to show up anyway. And it's blurry, speaking of not showing up. Not sure why. There we go. Okay, so what I will do here, again, bear with me, very difficult with one hand. We're going to spin this thing a little bit with one hand. And spin it again. Alright, so this is the back side, the business side, people shouldn't see. You note we've got a thumb screw here, a thumb screw there, and a thumb screw here. So we'll start in the middle, and we just want to turn that loose. Again, if I can do this with one hand, you can do it with two, or a friend, I suppose. So this will be our back. Yeah, that's the back side for sure. And then our frontmost one, again, these are our kind of hard drive trays and everything. That was the one that was in the most. Again, if you have trouble, turn them a little bit at a time each. And so now, let's see if we can do this from the back side. Possibly. Let's try it. Yeah, alright, so I lift it up there. Again, I'm doing this in an idiotic position. And it's working alright. So we've got that up. Let's actually spin this around. That's kind of a waste of our time. So turning, turning, turning. And right there we'll put ourselves. So the thumb screws were back there. We've lifted it up from that position. And do we have anything holding it in place? I don't think so. Oh, there we go. So index finger did the trick. And out she comes. You want to be careful because you don't want to take the paint off either the power supply cover or any of the case components. So there we are. That's basically it. I do think, yeah, there are a couple of recesses. You can sort of see them right there, and I think that they might kind of slide in place here on these rubber stops. So that's it. We've opened that up. We can install a power supply when we get to that point. and so far so good. So couple our little case prep here, just getting that out of our way, and then of course getting our IO shield in has gone surprisingly well with one hand. So pretty decent progress we just made, and we can look forward to getting the motherboard installed, so stay tuned for that. Alright, in order to make it a little easier on ourselves to decide how we're going to orient our CPU cooler, we're going to go ahead and this is, I guess, out of order from the limited literature I have, what I've seen online, but I don't see how mounting a CPU cooler and then installing RAM versus installing RAM and then installing a CPU cooler can do anything when it's never been plugged in, so we're just going to roll the dice this way. So these channel slots here, again, we can utilize the dual channels, basically left to right. In this case, this would be slot 4, slot 2, slot 3, slot 1. And so essentially if you were running, you know, just say we were running two 4 gig sticks for 8 gigabytes of RAM, we would use the 2 red slots here, so it would be slot 1 and slot 2, and then obviously we expand and we've got slot 3 and slot 4 that are in black. So this is the RAM that we selected. It's from G.Skill. It's the Ripjaws 4. I have no clue what I paid for it. It was a pretty decent price. Some of this stuff, there's newer things on the market, but it just, the price I don't think quite works. So F4 3000C 15Q 16G RBB. Again, this is 4x4 configuration for 16 gigs. In the future, we might need 32, but I don't think we're quite to the point where it's really of a huge benefit. So what we want to do, I guess if you want to be technical, you could do, you know, 1 and 2, then 3 and 4, but I don't really think it matters in this case. So these little switches on the back, we want to bend those back. And what we'll then do, these are foolproof. You know, the tooth right there, this is like a lot of automotive electrical connectors. You can only put it in one way, so it keeps you from really screwing stuff up. So this is not the way, as you can see, because it doesn't line up, so you want to turn it around. In this case, our little sticker, which I wanted to take those off, at least on the one that faced out. However, I then saw warranty void if removed, so I guess it will stay. But you just line it up in our slots here. Again, kind of hard to film this and do it, but just black and black. Make sure you don't go black to red or something crazy. You'd realize it when it didn't fit. But we press it down. You should kind of be able to see there the little rise, you know, lining up with our, you know, tooth spot. And then apparently we just want to press down on both sides, I believe, is what they suggest to do. I can't really do that with one. I guess I could try to, but I'm on top of a box, so I want to be a little bit more careful. But essentially, we'll repeat the process. We'll come back and we'll take a look at what it looks like, so stay tuned. Okay, so that was a lot easier than I thought it would be. It does take a little effort, but you'll hear it snap into place. The snap in my case is kind of obscured because we're elevated on top of the anti-static bag, on top of the box. But nonetheless, that's a kind of a horrible... very horrible. There we go. That's a little bit more in focus, but not the greatest lighting for that shot, but you get a feel for it. And the good news is, installed, you lower the height just that couple more, I guess we'll say millimeters to be all computer-like, but every little bit helps, and so we'll go ahead and repeat that 3 more times and then take a look at what we've got. And about 20 seconds later, there we have it. One good thing, if you know you seated one correctly and the others don't beat at the same height, you probably got a problem. The best news is the way they do the clips now, which you can see black, red there. Again, horrible lighting, there's a little better. But they actually will just push themselves back in. As soon as that goes down, the detent is hit and it slides itself back into position. Pretty slick looking. I mean, it's not a horrible setup. Again, I would love it if all of the G1 gaming and red accents were blue here. Particularly an anodized finish like our cooler and the RAM. But hey, not too terrible of a setup, and a lot of it's gonna get covered by the cooler anyway, right? So there it is from the side. Ooh, that's impressive. 4x4. We got our 16 gigs of G.Skill's Ripjaw 4s installed. We're coming around to this side again. I wish I could take that stupid tag off. That's the one spot that it would be visible, and the way the orientation fell and the way G.Skill put the stickers on, it just, each one of them faces out. I can't do anything about it because it's slotted. And if there's something does go wrong, I would prefer to have the warranty, so I guess the sticker stays. But that said, not too shabby. What we can do now is play around with this and the fans and kind of see where we're going to wind up sticking everything. So With this, obviously, it's not seated all the way down the cooler, and that's a little scary, but that is the gap that we've got right now. So once it were to be tightened down a bit, that's gonna be real close. And then the issue again, if we swivel this, right now the fans, we basically, have one here, and then on this flip side, you'd rely on the case fan, okay? If we rotate it where you read fan text, in this manner, right now it's kind of reading vertically. If we read it horizontal like the text on a book, we might run the risk of either the tower or the fan covering up our first expansion slot here, which we would like to use for the graphics card because then we wouldn't be blocking one of these. I kind of test fit our graphics card in these areas, and the problem you're going to run into there, you're covering up where you would have your ambient LED, number one. If you put it down here at the very, very bottom, I don't know about clearance. I would think our case would have plenty, but I could be wrong. But you would make your life like extremely more complicated than it should be because we're going to have to make use of a lot of these connectors. So we'll attempt to figure it out, and we don't want to get too crazy here because we still got to mount this thing. So I think it's actually best if we mount this and then do the graphics card. That's not what the instructions say. I could not imagine having to mount this in the case with all of this stuff installed. It seems like that would be making our lives very difficult. So I've got instructions, but I'm kind of applying common sense here. So we will see what happens. But the good news is right now we don't know if we screwed anything up because it's never run before, so we're still in good shape. But gotta say that does look pretty cool, our RAM installed there. So very simple there. I think anyone can handle that. Now we just have to figure out how we want to orient this. So I'll play around. I guess we'll do some more videos on mounting this, setting the fans up and everything, and then we'll come back and play with our clearances. And we're back with this thing, and still trying to kind of mock up our clearances, but I want to again point out right here down at the base, we've got sort of like this milled keyway. You've got a raised area, threaded insert there, or I guess drilled and tapped we should say, and this is what we're going to need. This was in the accessory bag along with the bracket, and so note right here, you've got a nice oval slot. The way this is going to work, we put that in place. Again, I've kind of had this in place for forever, and it stays wonderfully well without this. Of course, for an installation, we will need it. So we're going to get that in. Again, all we're going to do is put that in place and thread it. And after much debate, I've kind of figured this out, and it was extremely annoying. I don't know if it's because it's 2 in the morning or I'm tired or what it might be. But essentially, this right here, this would be essentially what we would say facing the front of your case, right? And that means that the airflow is going to go like this arrow indicates through your first tower, okay? And so you're going to want to have the clip oriented like this little black clip that they give you, the pin retention, whatever you want to call it. It literally just presses in what you would think would be a typical mounting hole. And when you've done that, then you want to orient the clip like this. The hooks need to face kind of like away from the fan. And what I mean by that is this is our, so hard to do this with one hand, but this is our rim, and this is kind of the fan right here. And so the clip is not going to point in towards the fan. It's going to point away from the edge, away from the fan, out towards nothing, or my thumb in this case. If you orient it in that manner, you're going to be home free. Do the same thing down here, and then this clip will actually come in, and if we slide this over, again, so hard with one hand, it will just clip right here, kind of where you have this recess. The cool thing is, I think you can kind of jockey the position up and down. If you did have some tall RAM or something, it would look funky, but you can do it. The issue I've got is that I would kind of like to have, regardless of whether we wind up going vertical or horizontal, again, most people seem to go horizontal. I'm thinking vertical might be, in fact, better. I have nothing to base that on aside from my experiences with heat in the past. But what I do want to stress is that right now, the way this is oriented with our power at the back side there and on the top, we have just kind of this airflow graphic, which you can't really see well on the fan. This one over here, if we bring it in again, you've essentially got 4 sides. You've got fan text, you've got airflow, you can kind of see that. Flip side again is fan text. Those are basically 180 from each other. And then 90 degrees from that's not airflow, it's just like a little model number type of a thing. The instructions have it set up like this. Okay, so you've got fan text on your towers, and then you have nothingness and fan text facing out. That's how I've oriented the clips on this fan here to do that. That's why the airflow is at the top. I guess that makes a little bit of sense. Personally, it would kind of be cool to have the branded stuff showing. So I'll be playing with this some more, but again, those clips are a total pain to figure out. Again, I don't know if it's just me, if it's so backwards from what I expect, or what it might be, but follow that setup there again, and you'll have them stretch across the fan, and then literally this end here, kind of like your Trapper Keeper style clip. Just trust me, if you can mirror what you see here, you'll be doing fine. So I'll get this threaded on. Again, it's literally just screwing it into place, and then we'll continue playing with our orientation. So stay tuned for that. Alright, in order to fully mock this thing up and kind of see where we ultimately want to position the cooler, which is our holdup right now, gonna go ahead, I've got the case over here on the pool table. We're gonna bring the motherboard back in, we're gonna thread it into place, or at least mock it up a little bit. Included in our accessories with our Fantex case, we have this little tote box here. The third, I guess the middle, third from the left, third from the right. Those little tiny screws that you see right there, we're going to need 9 of them. They will be what fastens in here. On our I/O shield from Gigabyte, we've already installed that. This tracer right here, that's going to be our LED backlighting. So I just went ahead to keep it up and out of the way. I've kind of threaded it in through that wire grommet cover. And again, we're going to mock this in just so we can see. I mean, we've got right here, we've got our exhaust fan. Obviously, it's going to be pulling the air and pushing it out through the back of the case. And then right here, we've got the same thing. So hot air going up and out. That's a pretty good layout. It just creates the dilemma of which way to position our cooler, and either vertically, you know, or horizontally. So we're going to just kind of put it in place and kind of try to feel it out that way. So we'll go get the motherboard, drop it in, and see what things look like. Alright, so here we are. It is the dawn of a new day, and mainly because it got really late last night, but I checked, I just copied off everything we'd recorded last night. I realized I apparently didn't have a video of the motherboard installed, but apparently last thing we recorded, we pointed out the 9 screws. All we've done is we put it into place here. Everything else is the same. What has changed, and what I did overnight has not changed yet, but right there where you see the 2 crossbars on the top and bottom of our processor, I have checked with Fantex. I went ahead, that's the manufacturer of the cooler, manufacturer of the case, conveniently, so they should like me when I ask them this question. If we run the cooler horizontally like everyone else does, meaning the fans are like case fans, kind of like the RAM, essentially, you know, we'd have a situation where we have the outer fan over here that kind of pulls the air in from the front of the case, middle fan that, you know, pulls it through and then pushes it, and then it's exhausted through the case fan. But I mentioned again last night that if we just switch these 2 bars around, we can run it vertically. And my question to them was if they had a preferred method, if one performed better than the other. Essentially, I said, you know, hey, this lines up almost directly. However, going up, that lines up almost directly as well. So their response to me was that it doesn't really matter, and there should not be any significant change one way or the other. It's basically like a personal preference. So I'm thinking I might switch it. The other issue I've run into that's kind of a downer, and I don't see how this would not be an issue with everything, but right here, this amp up audio, that little kind of like the clear area where my finger's running, and I believe maybe on the board some, I'm not sure, the pictures make it look that way. That's our like LED light up effect on this board. It's not up top, it's not over here, it's, as best I can tell, just right there. If I put our graphics card here in this top PCI slot, which apparently you're supposed to do, it's going to cover up like 95%. There's like a little bit up here we might see, and just like a tiny bit down here, and we're never going to bend, you know, down and look into the case to see it. And that to me is disappointing. You know, it sucks because you can do like, you know, lighting effects, breathing, strobe, all kinds of crazy stuff. And yes, it does matter to me. So I'm seriously considering using our second PCI slot. It should perform just the same as the top one. The other thing that will allow me to do is if I do wind up with any M2 stuff, we've got access here, and we could then maybe dress those up a little bit. I don't know. But it shouldn't affect performance any, from what I can tell. It's just, I guess, the old rule in the book is always use the slot closest to the processor. And that just, to me, would like jumble everything up and make it really, really cramped. And on top of that, it would cover up like one of the coolest things on the motherboard, in my opinion. So I think I'm going to try it down here and see what happens. I don't have any plans to use that third 16 slots, so we should be fine. I don't think it'll be splitting anything. But other than that, I mean, that way we'll have our cover roughly right here over the power supply. Should be plenty of airflow here because the fans on the graphics card, of course, face down anyway, right? So they, I guess, bring air up. This over here, the case fan, would be bringing air in. That would interact. We'd kind of have a clear path here, and then we'd sort of have two separate areas. I've also researched the power supply issue. Personally, you'd think the fan would face up just to keep dust and crud out. But with the cover here, I never saw anyone like specifically ask about a cover being a concern. This case, it's pretty awesome. It does have the dust filter. I'll probably place it down on some board we'll cut out or something. But with the perforations here, the venting, everything along those lines, I'm thinking I'll go ahead and just mount it fan down, because then, as you can see here, this is with the fan down and the text is the right side up, so that's pretty awesome. It'll make our life a little bit easier. So we'll probably slide the power supply in here, play around with the graphics card. Something else, as a first-time builder, I don't understand. They tell you to like install everything, and then if you read the EVGA manual on the graphics card, which is easy because it's short, it's the deal where they tell you to go ahead, and you've got to, boot your system up, run it, come in, go to BIOS, cancel out, like your internal graphics, which this board does have, obviously, with our display out ports and everything. Cancel that, turn it off, come back in, install the card, install your drivers. So it's kind of conflicting information type of a situation. But I think what I will do is I'll go ahead and I might mock it up a little bit, but we'll probably reorient that and try it vertical. So again, for people that might hate on me just because it's not normal and not what you see conventionally, I did check with the manufacturer and they said it's not a big deal. So it's their case, it's their cooler. I assume they would want to help and be happy that someone has two of their products. So I'll take them at their word for it. And to me, it makes sense. Warm air rises, right? So we'll run with that. I'll also, I guess next thing we will do is maybe slide the power supply in, reorient that, mock some stuff up, and then I might go ahead and stick in the optical drive or something, and we'll start making some more progress on this thing. So, but that is what it looks like in the case without anything else. You'll probably never see a lot of this again because our cooler is going to go in and just dwarf everything. So my apologies, the lighting is not that great in the case. You know what? If we pull the graphics card, it would let a little more light in. Not a ton, but a little bit. So nonetheless, it is what it is, and we will progress on with that and see where it takes us. So stay tuned. Also, I think I'll do a quick segment where we kind of put the backing plate on our graphics card, so stay tuned for that.